Hey everyone, welcome back to What's Your Favorite Scary Story? This episode, we got some good stories to read, so let's just get right into it with the first story. I keep my son inside a chest. Each morning when I wake up, I open the chest where I keep my son. I stroke his small skull and murmur, "Good morning," although I know he can no longer hear me. I hope he doesn't think I've abandoned him. I hope he knows I never will. When my son died of a fever, I refused to let him go. He was only a baby, and all that I had left. So I turned to the stories my own mother had told me, the rituals and legends I learned in childhood. The rules of bringing someone back from the underworld seemed so easy. I scoffed at the stories of those who failed, sure that my willpower will be stronger than theirs. I forced my way through to the fields of night, and I found my son's faint, pale soul. I guided it all the way back to his body, never looking back once. When I saw my son open his eyes again and smile at me, I thought I had made the right choice. He laughed, he ran, he played just as he had before. I even believed I could pretend nothing had happened. Then a few days later, I saw the rot creeping up his skin. At that moment, I realized my mistake. I hadn't restored my son to life. I had only brought his soul back to his corpse. I tried to comfort him as his body swelled and decayed. He wailed day and night in fear as his flesh fell from his bones. Only when his throat rotted away did he stop screaming. I attempted to return to the underworld to return my son's soul, but the way would not open to me again. I cheated death, and my punishment was to keep what I stole. When his ligaments finally broke down, I gathered his bones and placed them in the antique chest I inherited from my mother. Only the best would do for my son. Sometimes my son's bones lie still inside the chest for hours, even days, and I dare to hope that his soul found its way back to where it belongs. But sooner or later, his bones always begin to rattle again, and I know he's still alive. Once, all I wanted was to have my son here with me. But now, I would give anything for him to die. That story honestly really surprised me. I didn't see where it was going to go. I thought it was just going to be like he killed his son and then kept him inside a chest, but it completely caught me by surprise, and it was a really good story. So, let's move on to the next story, which we have a little guest voice, and that's going to be my friend Tim. So thank you, Tim, for voicing it. But let's get to the story. What would you do? You're walking home. It's just gone past 11 p.m. You've made this journey hundreds of times, but you always feel uneasy. It's less than a 10-minute walk, but there are barely any streetlights, and the only point of interest is an old, abandoned windmill. Your mind can't help but fill in the gaps of what you can't see. There's usually no one around, but tonight you hear a car coming. It pauses by you, but continues going. You memorize the number plate, just in case. You hear it go to the bottom of the road. Sound carries well in silence. You hear it maneuver, and the guttural engine is coming closer again. It stops right by you, and the window is wound down. The driver calls out,
"I just thought you should know there's a man up ahead, where you are walking. He's shouting and muttering to himself. He seems frantic. Do you want a lift?"
The man is smartly dressed, speaks clearly, but he's still a stranger in a car. Your blood runs icy, your brain races. You only have his word that there's a dangerous stranger ahead. What would you do? I chose to politely decline. For all I knew, there was no stranger, and the man in the car was trying to entice me into a space where I'd be trapped. The man in the car shrugged and drove away, leaving me to the darkness. I quickened my pace. I didn't know whether the muttering stranger would be around the next corner, or if the man in the car would double back again. I didn't know. It turns out that a frantic, gabbling stranger on amphetamines can move a lot quicker than I can. But I'm brave. I'm not about to let anyone change where I walk. Now I roam the back streets every night, looking for the lone walkers, trying to keep them company on their journey. They're few and far between now. Apparently, there's a ghost that hangs around near the windmill. I've never seen it, though. That one just feels really realistic, which I think made me really enjoy it, because you never know what you're going to find at night, and it kind of exceeds your expectations with the stranger in the car not trying to kill the person, because we already know that cliche by now. Let's move on, though, to the last story for this episode. A fresh start. When we had got the news, we had all been so excited. I would get a new job, my kids would apparently have a newer, better school. Me and my family would have a nice big living space for us to spend the rest of our days in. My job was to cook for them, to be exact. We weren't supposed to eat it, but they thrived on it. It looked like beef, but a bit pinker. Looked too chewy for my taste, but we weren't supposed to cook it, only prepare it. I never really knew what it was, though, until now. I know the secrets, but it's far too late. I started getting the hints when my coworkers stopped showing up when they were supposed to, or when my daughter talked about how her classmate had gone missing. I didn't really want to believe it. It was just a stupid theory at the time. No truth behind it, you know? Just my brain freaking out. My thoughts had confirmed when I recognized a bit of skin on the meat. The leathery skin had the slight outline of a ship. You could see the sails and a bit of hull. My buddy Francis had that same tattoo. I internally was freaking out, but couldn't show it in front of them. Those murderers. One seemed to eye me suspiciously, but I tried to play it off. I really did. Not well enough, apparently. A few days after that, my wife called me crying, sobbing something about Zoe, my princess. The one little ball of joy that came home from school every day with new things to tell me. She hadn't returned home from school that evening, and she was now missing. She's the one whose classmates will tell their parents about, just like she had done before. If you had wondered why we didn't tell the authorities, they are the ones that make them go missing. They make fathers not return home, children hearing their last bedtime story before they could even read themselves, and wives going mad because of a disappearance. They are happy about it. I wonder how messed up they can be before realizing they love it. More meat for them. I learned what was happening far too late. The colony had dwindled down to its last few families, but there was nothing I could do to stop it. I cried when I thought about how at some point I must have even prepared my own daughter for them. Those slimy I probably shouldn't say this about them, in case they find this, but I will say one last thing. If someone ever reads this, remember, they aren't what they say. Things sound too good to be true, and they are. Escaping from that broken planet onto this one was a mistake. I'd rather have died alongside that asteroid. And as the last human from Earth, remember, they do not come in peace. This one was honestly kind of depressing. I mean, once the daughter got involved, I was kind of sad, although you already knew where it was going to go. But it did still make me pretty sad. I think I would rate the stories: I Keep My Son in a Chest, What Would You Do?, and A Fresh Start, which is the exact order that I did them this episode. So thank you everyone for watching. Leave a comment below if there's a scary story that you would like me to read. But let's flash forward to the next review.